The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Gwilda Wiyaka's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the Science of Magic or endorsed in any manner by Gwilda Wiyaka, Relmar McConnell Media Company, its affiliated networks, stations, or employees. Welcome to the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, a program dedicated to uncovering the unified nature of reality and humanity's ever-evolving place as truly galactic beings. For more information on the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit us online at www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Welcome to the Science of Magic, a place where science and magic come together to transform fact into evolving truth. We're coming to you through the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net, and can also be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. This hour we'll be exploring Set My Spirit Free. Many of us think our body is who and what we are. Beyond occasional curiosity about death and what might come after, most don't really consider who we are without our physical form. Because I've lived much of my life in a dissociative state, most of my experiences have been out of body. Having been physically abused from a very young age, I learned early on that my body wasn't a safe place to be. I became extremely proficient at traveling out of body at will. I started living outside of my body so young, I thought that's the way it was with everyone. As I got older, I started noticing that people would do the strangest things. They go to all the trouble of getting up out of a chair and walking all the way upstairs to see if someone had arrived. Why not just zip up there without bothering with the cumbersome physical form? Much faster and more efficient in my way of thinking. I was 4 when stepmother wondered out loud that my father was late getting home. Obligingly, I went to find him. His truck was on the side of the road about a mile from the farm, and he was changing the tire. I came back to the general vicinity of my body to inform her he had a flat, but it looked like he was almost done fixing it. I couldn't understand why she chastised me for lying. Father arrived shortly thereafter. He apologized for being late and explained he had a flat. Stepmother looked over at me in horror, all the color draining from her face. That was the first time I really got it that I was not normal. Not even close. I never really managed the art of living in my body until attending massage college. Through giving and receiving all sorts of body work and body-centered therapy, I finally learned to be present in the physical. The first thing confronting me was one huge mess of unprocessed emotion stored in my body. Adrenals were fried, thyroid trashed, digestion non-existent. In short, I was at death's door in my early 30s. Unable to be physically present, I was also unable to ground my will and intent. As a result, my life was not functioning well. I was accident-prone and a constant target for other people's projections, as I was not present enough to protect myself. I thank the good Lord every day for my shamanic training. I've been living in the shamanic way ever since my early 20s. Upon recognizing I was not present in the physical, I used the skill to fully return to the body and clean up the mess my absence had wrought. The entire process has taught me a great deal about life, death, physicality, and the land of spirit. In order to move back into the body, I used every shamanic skill I had to correct all the imbalances in my physical, emotional, and mental bodies. As a result, I've become very processed and extremely stable. I didn't lose the ability to come and go from the body at will. What I gained was the ability to be physically present in order to experience life as a corporeal being. I learned about spirit by living outside of my body. I learned about life by living in it. Shamans navigate the ethers. They visit the world of spirit and that of the dead. They obtain information about the future and the past. They travel to find game and wield power over the quantum level of life to affect outcome. All of this requires discipline, training, and the ability to travel out of body at will. There are 4 precursors to the shamanic gift: genetic predisposition, traumatic childhood, near-death experience, and head injury. While any one will do, I scored on all 4 counts. Yet, one need not have any of these experiences to obtain shamanic skills. From being buried up to the neck and left out overnight to having one's chest pierced and tied to a sundance tree, many shamanic traditions have brutal rites of initiation. These procedures are designed to shatter the initiate and set their spirit free from their body. While these initiations have worked for millennia, there has to be an easier way, right? Our guest this hour, certified hypnotist William Buhlman, is the author of Adventures Beyond the Body, Secrets of the Soul, Adventures of the Afterlife, and Higher Self Now. For 40 years of extensive personal out-of-body explorations gave him a unique, thought-provoking insight into this subject. Over the past 2 decades, William has developed an effective system to experience safe, self-initiated, out-of-body adventures. After this commercial break, I'll introduce William, and together we'll view the world from within and from out the physical form. It should be enlightening, so don't go away. You're listening to The Science of Magic. Prior innovative episodes can always be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com. Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour, William Buhlman, is the author of Adventures Beyond the Body, Secrets of the Soul, Adventures in the Afterlife, and his latest, Higher Self Now. His website is www.astralinfo.org. William, thank you so much for joining us on The Science of Magic.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here.
Would you, just for starts, would you define what an out-of-body experience is?
An out-of-body experience is essentially the separation of consciousness from the body for a temporary period of time. And just to be clear, it differs from a near-death experience because the body does not in any way biologically stop functioning. And also out-of-body experiences are far more, there's far more of these experiences than near-death experiences, but for some reason, often they're confused as the same thing.
Yeah, that's interesting because I've seen a lot of, my practice is shamanism, and so somebody that's just about to get to a car accident oftentimes they don't want to be around for that experience, so they'll leave their body. Is that what you're talking about as well?
Yes, sure. It happens in combat. I receive thousands of letters because my book's in multiple languages. And a lot of people detail this kind of experience. Like during an auto accident, they'll exit their body. Soldiers report this quite commonly if there's an explosion. And, I just received a letter in the last week from someone that had related their experience in Iraq where an IED exploded, and next thing they knew, they were out of their body. It's an interesting phenomenon. It's very common.
I understand you've done quite a bit of research on the out-of-body experiences. Would you tell me what you found there?
Well, yes, I've been researching and studying this topic. I have had my own experiences for many decades, but I conducted a survey that has well over 16,000 participants from 42 nations. And the number one thing is that they're common phenomena in every culture. This is just a normal experience that people have because consciousness is not physical. And it's actually a very normal, rational thing when you consider the vast majority of humanity believes that we're spirit or soul. And if that's true, we're non-physical beings, so why can't we have the capability of leaving our body, since our body is just a temporary vehicle? And that's what I found more than anything. It's also very prevalent in children before puberty, I found, based on studies. Mostly, I feel, because children are they're just open. And they kind of, in a way, they flit around the universe until they're shut down by their society and their parents.
That's interesting, because in shamanic studies, a lot of different practices believe that when a child incarnates, they don't just incarnate, they kind of come and go for a little while. So that sounds like they're still coming and going on down the road, right?
Yes, that's exactly it. I mean, they're not quite locked in yet to the biological body. Every person's different, but especially to age 5, 6, many children are having all kinds of experiences beyond their bodies. But when they try to relate them to their parents, just like it was for me, my mother would tell me, "Oh, that's just a dream." You know, there's no reference point, so they kind of blow it off.
Yeah, and then our reality shifts as a result, because we aren't getting any positive feedback about it, right?
Yes, and as we get older, we assimilate into the biological society and the machine, and pretty much become indoctrinated, like most people are today, that we're physical beings, and we lose that inner ability, at least temporarily. It becomes dulled, where many people don't have the ability to have some of these, what people consider today to be almost transcendental experiences. It's really quite a shame, because it's our natural capability.
Yeah, that's the way I've always experienced it. We can be both places at once, in and outside of our body, and you have much richer experience that way, yeah?
Oh, absolutely. You see the multidimensional aspects of life. Most people don't realize that we're playing a multidimensional game of life. They're aware of 2 levels of our existence: birth, or the physical, and then death. But actually, we live in a multidimensional continuum, and there's many levels of existence. So once you become aware of that throughout a body, it opens up a whole new world for you.
Do you think that once we become aware of this multidimensionality, that we have different pathways we can take, like different outcomes for the same experiences?
Oh, absolutely. I think it gives you a greater insight into your life journey, because you see it from a wider perspective. You know, the old saying, knowledge is power. Mm-hmm. And now, by knowledge, I mean multidimensional knowledge of our true self. You know, the greatest problem in humanity is a lack of knowledge of ourselves. We don't know the average person has no idea where they're going, where they come from, and what their purpose is. So, of course, they're going to get mired down in the physicality of all the drama and the belief systems.
And when we're trapped in our physical body, it's very isolating. I think we feel very alone, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Most people don't understand that feeling, though, unless you've had out-of-body experiences. Yeah, it is. It's a liberating feeling. It's a wonderful, magnificent liberation to be free from the body. But when you say that, unless you've had the experience, it's hard for people to relate to that. But it's quite a powerful experience.
Yeah, it really is. It's like when I'm out of my body, which is most of the time, I feel that unity with everything else, whether it's a tree or a flower or the person next to me or a person across the continent. That unity is much more corporeal for me than if I'm real present in my physical body. Has that been your experience?
Oh, absolutely. You feel more you're more in touch with all consciousness, because all things are consciousness. All physical forms that we say that's the center of reality. It's not the center. Trees, animals, grass, people. These are all vehicles of consciousness. Mm-hmm. And once you realize that, you get, oh my God, we're like on this we're on the epidermis level of the universe, trying to figure out what game we're playing. And by having OBEs, we go inward and we start to get a glimpse of what is really reality. And it's quite an illuminating experience.
The other thing that I've experienced is I can go out of the body, or I can go out of the body by coming into the body, clear to the subatomic level. Have you experienced that?
Well, I have experienced multiple energy bodies. I've had experiences where I thought I had come back to my body, and I'm sitting up in my sofa or my lounge chair, wherever I'm doing my OB practice, and then I realize this isn't my physical body I'm in. I'm in I'm in an ethereal body, what nowadays we would call the etheric. Some people call it the etheric or the second body. And I realized, oh my God, it felt like my physical, but I realized I'm not in my physical body yet. That's what gets so interesting. We're multidimensional beings, and that's what mankind is slowly awakening to. It's probably the pivotal step in our evolution as a species, when we begin to recognize that we're multidimensional, and that all life is multidimensional, but we are multidimensional.
It's just amazing, and I think that's where we're going increasingly right now, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Science is pointing the way in this regard. With there's so many theories, of course, but string theory and many of the others point to this idea. I find it funny almost that now science is debating how many dimensions there are. I've been to discussion groups where people are discussing, well, there's 14 dimensions. No, there's 11. And and this is a scientific discussion, not a metaphysical discussion. Science is really starting to awaken to the reality that metaphysicians have known for hundreds of years. They just look at it in a different perspective. But it is interesting to see that science and metaphysics is melding now in a very powerful way.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? It's like, again, science and magic coming together, because until we do, we're going to be segregated and we're not going to have the whole truth of things.
No, we're in the epidermis level in the physical, and you can't judge the totality of reality when you're standing on the outer fringe of of reality. And that's the problem with science and a lot of the viewpoints that are now strongly held. It's also the problem with the belief systems that dominate our society. They're based on often a very, let's just say, narrow viewpoint of reality. And the source of reality has nothing to do with matter. Matter is the end result of this consciousness that's creating all these beautiful forms around us.
Amazing. Just amazing. So I have about a minute and a half left. Let's play with exactly what is astral projection and how does it differ from out of body?
Well, they're basically, out of body is a general term, meaning any state of consciousness beyond the body. Astral projection was an older term that existed before the term out of body, and it was designed to delineate the projection of the astral body, which is one of our multidimensional bodies that I speak of, because we have an etheric body, we have a mental body. And in the older literature, they talked about the projection of just that one single body. But today, for instance, I don't use that term very often because it's quite dated in its scope. I think I use the term out of body because it's really any state of consciousness beyond the body can be extremely powerful and life-changing. And I don't delineate too much, unless I'm in a workshop, of course, and I'll talk about specifics. For instance, because I train people how to have out-of-body experiences in my 6-day workshops at Monroe, and here we go into real detail about which energy body you may be experiencing. But overall, out-of-body covers it all.
So do you find that by being aware of which energy body you're working with, you get more precise in your out-of-body travel?
Yes, yes. It's important to know if you want to be effective in your explorations of consciousness, it's critical to know what energy body you're functioning in, because that will determine your capabilities. Each energy body possesses different capabilities. And that has, for instance, the astral body has far more capabilities than the denser etheric body. And I don't want to get too technical with this, but yes, if you really want to be effective and explore, that's important
That's the way
to
to
know
do
these
it.
things.
Well, we're going to have to pick up with this on the other side of the break. We're going to talk about how we come and go with accuracy. William and I will return to our discussion after this short break. You're listening to The Science of Magic on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Previous broadcasts of thought-provoking episodes can always be found on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. We will be back, so don't you go away. The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com. Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, a place where magic and science come together to promote enlightenment. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is William Buhlman. He's the author of Adventures of Beyond the Body, Secrets of a Soul, Adventures in the Afterlife, and his latest, Higher Self Now. William, we were talking about the accuracy of using different etheric bodies to come and go based on what we're trying to achieve. My next question to you is, how can we accurately come and go so that we know that we're present when we're present and we can hit the mark when we're leaving?
Well, what I always do, number one, you have to be centered. Yeah, a lot of people during out-of-body experiences, one of the major problems is that there's core skills that have to be developed. And the number one skill is that you have to hold your consciousness present. You have to maintain. In other words, if you're out of body and you think of your physical body, you'll snap back to your physical body in a heartbeat, because we go where our thoughts direct or where we focus. So it takes skill to begin to train ourselves. For the average person is not a natural, and they have to retrain themselves in certain core skills about how to maintain focus. In other words, become interested in your new environment. Find an object in your new environment, lock onto it, so that you can maintain your focus away from your body. That's one of the biggest problems people have, actually, is the average out-of-body experience for people is incredibly brief. It's generally it can be 10 seconds, 15 seconds, because we are so conditioned to think of our physical body as our home. And that is, we have to retrain ourselves to look at ourselves differently as multidimensional beings, as non-physical beings. So that's one of the core things that has to be focused upon from the very beginning.
So what I'm hearing you say is that it's our intent that directs where we go. And so we have to be very clear with our intent and hold that intent?
Yes, Intent is the engine driving your entire train of consciousness. And intent is incredibly powerful. I teach people various affirmations like awareness now. That's one of the key ones. Lucidity now is another one. Next level now, if you want to move to another dimensional, let's say, reality. There are specific commands. I always teach everyone to say now because the subconscious mind does not accept a timeline. So it's very important that we learn how to control our states, or we'll end up, number one, we'll be real flighty, and we'll end up losing our focus, and then we end up back in the body. So that's the main thing. It's a personal training that goes on, that you focus your intent and then you hold that intent. I use mantras to do that. When I'm out of body, I use awareness now. It's like a powerful mantra to constantly reinforce my focus. And that way you can prolong your out-of-body experience and make it productive. Learn things about yourself and the universe.
That's amazing. So, the other thing that I've noticed, and seems to be a real problem, particularly with people that do remote viewing and this and that, is you can be out of body and you might know where you are, but sometimes it's not so easy to know when. Can you talk about that?
Yes, the time, we're so locked into this perception of linear time in the physical body. But out-of-body explorers have found long ago, and it becomes obvious when you're having the experience, time does not exist as we know it. Because think about it, we're immortal. As soul, as consciousness, we are immortal. What is time to an immortal? So we have to realize that during an out-of-body experience, we can end up in any timeline. And it can get to be very confusing unless you're focused. And I write about this extensively, where I've had experiences where I'm a German soldier during World War II. And in my books, I relate a lot of these type of experiences. Spontaneously, you could be in a different timeline. And then you have to stay very centered and focused and calm because it is very, very realistic. And this is the kind of thing that throws people because they don't understand, wow, how is that possible that I'm experiencing, myself as a German soldier? But this is what happens because we start to connect to the totality of our many, many different experiences. And we go to the area that, let's just say, needs attention. There may be a recurring issue that needs to be resolved. And we have a tendency to re-experience energy, environments, and situations that need healing or need to be, let's just call it, resolved in any way, shape, or form, often through a form of healing. In other words, there has to be balance in everything we do throughout our entire totality of our existence. So we're always seeking balance.
So when we're out of body, do you think that kind of triggers us into the places where we might be imbalanced, and that's why you go to a particular, if we want to call it a past life, where there was a trauma or damage?
Yes, that's what I found. I had many recurring experience as a German soldier on the Russian front where I died with one of my sons. We both died there. And I was not... That's what made me, after having 30 of these experiences, that's when I knew that reincarnation was real. Because I don't just accept things on face value. I never have. I like to experience them personally. And I've had other ones. But then you realize, oh my God, I needed to resolve issues related to that past incarnation. In other words, I was angry. And many people have, let's just say, recurring, we're holding on to issues from past lives.
Yeah, and we tend to relive them.
And we need to relive them to release that energy. And that's what's happening automatically in OB. By the way, this is very seldom talked about. It's unfortunate, but people talk about this as in past life regressions. But this happens automatically in OBEs because our higher self wants to heal us of all of the issues that we have in our subconscious mind.
So when you go out of body, you're immediately drawn to where you have the restrictions.
Yes, you can. Once you're ready for it, once you are ready to handle that, you're immediate. That's what I have found. You are drawn to, and it happens automatically. You're drawn to environments, conditions, and people that need resolution. For instance, if you had an issue with your father and he passed, and you never, for instance, there was no resolution, he dies. Undoubtedly, at some point, you are going to be drawn to your deceased father, face to face, and you're going to somehow given an opportunity to resolve that imbalance. That there may have been a feeling of distrust or even hatred between two family members. That energy has to be resolved somehow, and it happens during OBEs commonly. It also, of course, happens during regression sessions.
So can traveling out of the body be dangerous?
No. I have found that no. 41 years. I'm still here. I'm healthy. I'm functioning great. I mean, Robert Monroe said the same thing. We're immortal. All those fear-based concepts that people talk about, I have found no evidence to support it. Now, you follow me? People have to wrap their mind around the concept that you cannot really die. Death does not exist. It just doesn't exist. I mean, yes, our biological body dies, but we don't. Consciousness never dies. We continue to learn and grow in different environments. No one has ever died, no consciousness, no soul has ever died in the history of mankind, which is a wild concept. Everybody's continuing to learn and grow through personal experiences. And some of these personal experiences are darn tough. The physical world is a tough training ground. But that's what we have to begin to wrap our mind around. And the more that we can do to resolve issues now, let's just say the more freedom we will have in the afterlife, much more freedom.
Yeah, and that's, again, if you're walking out the frequencies to cross back over into pure spirit, you've got to move through all those places that you haven't cleared, and that can be a miserable process.
Yeah, well, it could be a lengthy process, and that's what most people are doing, to be quite frank, that I have seen. The afterlife is full of schools, training centers, healing centers, where people are dealing. We don't become, there's this, now people are waking up to the reality. We don't become angels when we die. We continue to be, if you're a bigot, you continue to be a bigot when you're dead, for instance. I'm just using that as an example. We don't become purified. Our state of consciousness continues exactly the same as it was. It's up to us. And the Buddha said this, nobody can save us but ourselves. We have to take responsibility for our thoughts, our deeds, and our actions. And then we have to resolve these energy issues in order to, let's just say, experience the full potential of our true self. And remember, the afterlife is vast. Billions of realities. Billions, beyond anything we can imagine. And they're all based on states of consciousness. And this is not theory. This is observable fact when you're out of body. So we have to always be working on ourselves to let's just say, purify our own state of consciousness to the best of our ability.
So the myth that we turn into angels and all of our sins are forgiven and we just ascend upon death is just so much of a myth, right?
It's a total falsehood. It's beyond a myth. It's a falsehood, and Buddhism accepts the reality of it. Most of the religions, by the way, it's only Christianity and a few of that has really tried to project this belief system that we become somehow purified and that we learn everything in one short trip. And now we're little like Tinkerbells after death. Most of the planet recognizes, I'm talking about Hinduism, Buddhism, Sufism, even shamanism, for God's sake, they recognize that we continue, that there's many worlds. and that we continue to work on ourselves. And it's a personal process of I use the term we become that which we wish to learn. I will never know what it's like to be a woman by reading books. I could read 1,000 books on being a woman. I would never know it. But one incarnation as a woman, my God, I bet I could get it down pretty fast. That's my point. That's how our species evolves, by becoming that which we wish to learn.
I love that thought. We're going to have to take another break. William and I will be back on the flip side of this commercial break. You're listening to The Science of Magic on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net, the place where altruistic professionals of science and the esoteric create common ground for the betterment of our world. You can always listen to previous transformative broadcasts on our website, www.thescienceofmagic.net. Don't go away. The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com. Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, bringing together gifted people of service to the world. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is William Buhlman, the author of Adventures of Beyond the Body, Secrets of the Soul, Adventures in the Afterlife, and Higher Self Now. I would like, William, if you're okay with it, to talk about your latest book, Higher Self Now, because what's the tag on that?
Well, it's about to be released in the next 5 days on Amazon. It's a product of 2.5 years of work. And the subtitle kind of says it all. It's Accelerating Your Spiritual Evolution. The book is about, it's an actual manual, in a way, for personal acceleration. And it not only in this physical life, but how to also, at the moment of death, how to accelerate. In other words, how death can be a launch pad for consciousness to experience true liberation and enlightenment, instead of just being a moment of grieving and, oh, it's the end and it's so terrible. And the book instructs you on how to make your life and your death the greatest adventure it can become. And that was my intent for the whole process. And I incorporate some of the Buddhist philosophies, even though I'm not a Buddhist, but I appreciate the truth when I hear it. About the death being just another step in our evolutionary cycle, and about the process of going multidimensional. In other words, go beyond the belief territories of the astral, go beyond the consensus realities of, and go to the higher, in other words, go to the higher vibratory realities of death, and project yourself like a rocket. Use the process of transition as and I use the term launchpad, but it's exactly what the book is about. And I'm very excited about it because it presents these subjects in a down-to-earth way that are understandable, anyone who's tried to read the Tibetan Book of the Dead knows it's like, oh my
Oh
God,
my gosh.
your mind explodes. It's like, and most people give up real quick because you get to page 5 and it's like, oh my God, I don't know what it's talking about.
Just so lost here. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but now what I tried to do is make everything simple, clear, and concise.
That's
do
wonderful.
this, and I put out a spiritual directive, which you fill out in the book, and it gives you step by step what to do to prepare, what to do when you are dying, what kind of affirmations to do. In other words, it's really a guidebook for life and death.
Do you see right now that we're actually have more of an opportunity to evolve spiritually and frequency-wise? It seems like there's a lot of that going on, and if you want to participate, it seems like it's really being supported right now. Can you speak to that?
Yes, I think it has been now for the last, I'd say, 20 years, but there is an acceleration for those that are open to it. And that's probably the key phrase here. You have to open to it within your own state, within your own mindset. But there's so many opportunities to explore, so many opportunities to have profound experiences now. There's a lot more knowledge. I remember when I started, there was nothing. 40 years ago, it was nothing, almost nothing that was understandable. Now we have guidance available, and there's all kinds of workshops. I do 2 different workshops at the Monroe Institute. So this is so important. Now, if you want to learn about these subjects, there's so many different tools available for you. There's so many. For instance, the Monroe Institute offers 16 different workshops.
Oh my goodness.
One of them is mine called Destination Higher Self, which I just completed last weekend, where my wife and I give a 3-day workshop on how to prepare for transition and how to assist a loved one, and including a pet, and how to make the best of your death without fear, and make it a joyful event, because it is, we're not going to avoid it. Let's be prepared for things. Let's be knowledgeable. It's just common sense to me.
Absolutely it is. And it sounds to me like you're dancing on the edge of psychopomp work, which is helping the dead to cross.
Yes, that's exactly what we're doing. That's what the second half of the whole book is about, how to prepare your state of consciousness, how to accelerate your consciousness at the moment of death. In other words, I include some traditions, including the Pawa in there, which is the transference of consciousness that the Buddhists talk about. I relate that experience. Opening the central channel. What I tried to do is make things understandable, though, so that we're not lost in that the cosmology of certain belief systems.
That is the challenge, isn't it? Is condensing it down to a form or putting it in a language that people that have been stuck in their bodies and don't really have a framework for the out-of-body or afterlife. That's been the challenge, hasn't it?
Yes, it's sad. I find it sad, at least, that at death, most people would gather. I've been to many funerals. My wife's mother just died. And my God, people are more concerned about the flowers present than about the state of consciousness of the individual that is crossing.
Exactly.
It's sad. I mean, because there's things we can do to assist the dying. But you have to learn the basics of it. It's not difficult. It's just simple things that we can do to assist a loved one to make their ideal transition, so they don't get stuck in these etheric realms. And you know what I mean? And this happens commonly. People are attached to their objects they've grown up with, and they end up being, they don't go to the higher levels. They end up being attached to their bodies, they end up being attached to their possessions, and they even end up being attached to their loved ones. And this is unnecessary. But
it's certainly the source of all hauntings, isn't it?
Yes, that's why there is hauntings.
Exactly.
Because it's attachment. It's strictly attachment.
A lot of the shamanic work that I have to do when I'm helping someone to cross is to pull their attachment out of their personal objects and things so that they are more whole when they cross. And this is what you're talking about, isn't it?
Yes. Absolutely. We have to recognize that these objects are meaningless. We're not taking anything with us except our state of consciousness.
My grandmother used to say shrouds don't have pockets.
Exactly. But our astral body, our spiritual body, also, in another phrase, we're not taking a darn thing but our state of consciousness. The only thing of value at the end of our life is our state of consciousness. And making it as free, it's up to us, each individual, to cleanse it to the point where it's free of detachments. I mean, the Buddha said this for 1,500 years.
Exactly.
It's common sense. The more attached you are, the more you're going to linger in the physical world or in the parallel segment of the physical world, which is exactly what causes all of the hauntings that are occurring worldwide.
Mm. So when you do work with out of body, it's almost like a boot camp for the final crossing. Is that correct?
Yes, my workshop, Destination Higher Self, is exactly a boot camp. It's an intense 3-day workshop on how to set up your sacred space, what affirmations to be played, create your own CD of your own spiritual affirmations and play those by your bedside, which of course in Tibet you would have monks around you chanting, go to the clear light of the void, go to the clear light of the void. We don't have that in our society.
Right.
Create your own process. It's an individualized process that will assist you, and you can do this for your not only other loved ones, but for your pets, and assist them to go to the highest aspect that they can achieve in this life. Instead of being attached to all the stuff that's here that's meaningless dribble. And that's what people have to realize, that everything physical is nothing but a temporary projection of consciousness. None of it is actually real. Even science says that. It's all, from a subatomic level, it's all space, 99% space.
Wow.
We have to grow up, in a sense, spiritually grow up and we have to take responsibility for our transition. Don't depend on someone else. Create your own spiritual directive, put it in writing, make it specific. This is what I want when I die. Exactly this. These are the words I want spoken around me.
Exactly. And it's like, isn't that the way to live as well? This is what I want for my life. I want to see true reality, not just what these five senses produce based on my conditioning.
Yes, it's so important that we have to begin to look beyond the facade, this temporary facade. I like to share one thing. Everybody talks about the other side. It's a very inaccurate term. The physical world it's a tiny, tiny sliver of reality compared to the non-physical realms we're about to enter.
Wow.
It's tiny.
Time has flown, and we're out of it. William, this has just been wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing everything with us, and I'm so excited about your new book. I think it should be on everyone's bookshelf. Our guest this hour has been William Buhlman, the author of Adventures of Beyond the Body, Secrets of the Soul, Adventures in the Afterlife, and his latest Higher Self Now. His website, www.astralinfo.org. This has been The Science of Magic. Until next time, dear ones, may you be blessed with knowledge and comforted with love as you explore the expansiveness of who you are.
One people, one nation, searching through the night. One people, one nation.